We've got an interesting episode of EO360 today. I'm titling it "My Problem is Bigger Than Yours," but also AI and analytics. so I got a call. I'm going to introduce this one. This is a little bizarre how I'm introducing this one, but I got a call from a friend of mine about a month ago. And this is a guy I've known for over a decade. And he called me about 10 minutes before I was about to go into therapy. And therapy is my new thing. I started going to see a therapist about a year ago, and it's awesome. If you don't have a therapist, I highly recommend going to see a therapist. So my problems are pretty trite, but I still have a therapist, and it's awesome. So he calls me 10 minutes before I'm walking in therapy. So I'm like, yeah, I got 10 minutes to talk. And I tell him, hey, yeah, I'm going to therapy. And like, it's cool. But sometimes I feel a little stupid because, like, I don't know, my problems are pretty basic. Sometimes we talk about childhood and some of the quote trauma, I guess, you deal with. My mother died young. I talk about that sometimes. But it's all work in progress towards finding peace with yourself. That's kind of how I think about therapy. And so regardless of how big your problems are, there are problems. The traffic is low on the scale of bad things. Cancer is pretty high on the list of bad things. But our brains kind of interpret them with, this is dangerous to say, and I don't quite totally believe it, but they're both bad. We feel disproportionately upset about traffic and probably not upset enough about cancer, but still we feel them both way more. Well, we feel traffic way more than we should, but we feel them both a lot. So I'm carrying this baggage from when I was like 15 years old. No matter how much success or achievement I find, I still look at myself through that lens of this 15-year-old kid. And then my buddy, Andrew James, calls me. Hey, Andrew, welcome.
Thanks. Nice to be here.
You weren't sure if that's when you were supposed to. So is this when I'm supposed to jump in? Yeah, man.
Is welcome. This my time? Yeah.
This is kind of like, this is the transition. So Andrew calls me and we chit chat. And of course, Andrew, being the nice guy he is, we talk about me. For a little while, I end up calling him back after when I get out of therapy and we chit chat. I think we were on for, 15, 20 minutes. And you're like, yeah, so I just had my fourth baby. I was like, dude, that's amazing. Congratulations. All this talk about like the stupid little things and me and my problems and 15-year-old Dave. And you're like, oh yeah. So later you're like, oh yeah, I had a baby. And I'm like, well, that's pretty big. That's awesome. And then
I think I said, else. Brace yourself. Okay. I'm going to catch you up.
Yep. So take it from here, Andrew. Take it from here as if we're in the conversation. You say, brace yourself.
I said, brace yourself. I've processed all this. You're like, so how are you? How's the family? How's the baby? Let's catch up. What's going on? I said, brace yourself. Everything's okay, but I'm going to take you through a 6-month roller coaster in like 3 minutes. And do you want to go from there? Do you want me to tell you what
keep going, man. This is the first half. Let me stop here. This is the first half of this episode. The second half, Andrew's an entrepreneur buddy of mine. That's how I met him, through this entrepreneur group, and has a company called Cerebro Analytics. They take AI to insight. It's collecting data from all these different places and turning it into real insight and action. And so we're going to talk about AI and the state of AI in 2026 and the market and all that stuff. That's going to be second half. First half, because I think this conversation is so interesting and I think there's a lot we could take away from it. I want to talk about happiness and problems. So go on.
Yeah.
So
because
brace yourself. You're going to take me through this journey. Go ahead.
I'll just preface this with two things. All of the major problems we face as entrepreneurs seem to actually be problems of the heart. Like, our heads are good at this stuff, and that they're so good that we have a hard time accessing all the stuff we're about to talk to. So that's why it's relevant, because we all go to masterminds, we all go to these things. So what do? We get around and we talk about our business for a little bit, long enough to know that we're in a space that it's safe to share like the actual stuff that's hard. that doesn't have a perfect clean answer or a statistic next to it that we can move the needle on to solve. That's thing one. Thing two is
That's a
I am
really
not the
good
hero of
point.
the story.
This is why I brought you into this conversation. Like that is a really insightful thought. Yeah, it's the emotion is the hardest part that we're challenged with. It's not the head, it's the heart.
Yeah, who in EO can't look at someone else's business and go, "Oh, yeah, just do this, this, and this." Why can't you do it? Well, because you're a human. And even if you add 75,000 robots to the equation, it gets easier. Your company gets bigger, problems change, but we still have some of those things going on. But the second point is, I'm not the true hero of the story. Okay. So, lest from the intro you believe that Andrew survived cancer, let's just be very, very clear. There's two, one very bald, one trending that direction, white guys sitting here talking about things that other people went through that were really hard and that affected them. And we'll
Wait,
go
did you
through it.
just suggest I'm going bald?
Well, you're probably
I
further
know we're
away from
talking
bald
about,
than me.
I mean, you gave away the ending of the story, the cancer, the beginning of the story, the cancer, but now let's you're talking about me going bald?
Well,
All right,
it's
go
on the
on.
roadmap.
Let's take this back. So you
Okay,
say
so I
brace
so I
yourself.
I said brace yourself. I said, all right, this is going to feel like a lot, so brace yourself. We had our fourth baby. 2 weeks later, my wife was in the hospital with a collapsed lung. And that afternoon, after a very emergent situation with a newborn and the other three older kids, my oldest is 9, she calls and she said, sit down. And I'm like, okay. And obviously, I wasn't as calm in that moment as I am now because I've got a newborn and a wife who couldn't breathe very well for the first 2 weeks after having a baby. And after 3 or 4 days, all the people were saying, okay, maybe this isn't just like normal postpartum stuff. Maybe you should go in. So she finally goes in, collapsed lung. Hey, honey, the doctor came in and said there's a mass on my chest. She was incredibly calm, calmer than she should have been at the moment. And that ensued with us finding a cancer diagnosis. She had a non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. And what that unfolded to mean was, here's the badass part. And I always like to just celebrate the hell out of her because this woman delivered unmedicated, naturally at home, a baby with cancer and a collapsed lung. She has quite the bragging rights, and I want to honor her for that. That is insane. She's tougher than me. Like, I've ridden my bike far.
Do you
You've
live in
ran
a
really
hospital?
far. No,
What?
no.
I don't. Okay, that's a different podcast
Well,
altogether. As
we
to
homeschool
why.
our kids. We had all the kids at home. We're those people.
Oh, good
So,
grief. Okay,
so that I guess you didn't know that detail. So
I
she
did
did
not.
that. 2 weeks after the baby is born, we find out she has cancer, and what that ended up meaning was every 21 days she would be in the hospital for 5 days straight, receiving chemo, like pretty aggressive, hardcore chemo. And so that was from roughly September through January. It's the end of February now. Late January, we got the results of she finished all 6 cycles. We got the results of the PET scan saying, hey, cancer's gone. Asterisks, let's check back in 3 months with another PET scan, take the port out. So we're now in the aftermath. The war's over, the treaty's signed. There's still some rubble on the ground. We're rebuilding a little bit. That's where I took you, and you can take it from there, from whatever stood out to you after that. But I kind
Well,
of told you, like, that's what's up with me. So
I mean, I think the really interesting thing is you're like, yeah, everything's fine. Uh, do you remember what you said right after that? You're like, yeah, it's funny because everything's fine, and 2 seconds later, I'm complaining about the traffic.
yes. So basically, I don't mean to minimize this. I've just gone through the story and the motions, and like we've grown so much as a result of this. There's so many lessons. And, forever ago, I read Man's Search for Meaning, and that I remembered in this experience. I was like, you need to think about how you're going to share what comes of this as a logotherapy is what Viktor Frankl called it. How are you going to talk about this? How is the growth you experience, whatever comes, going to serve other people? And that was a major motivating factor. And so as I went through the experience, there was a moment when between like the second and third cycle of chemo, because it was a rush. It was like, do we have time to look at options? Do we not? I mean, it was basically start chemo on Monday, or this mass will keep collapsing your lung. You won't be able to breathe and your wife will die. So it took a cycle or two to get to, hey, it looks like it's all going to be good. The treatment we're doing, the type of cancer, the diagnosis, the everything. I mean, it took forever to get an official, real, like the oncologist would say, it's this kind of cancer, therefore we're doing this kind of treatment. They like start before they get to the actual, they knew like what section of the library the cancer was in, but not which book until after we had started. So we got to a point, and of course we had a bunch of family support. I'm very grateful for grandmas. You know, I had a newborn and 3 other kids under the age of 10 to take care of, and a business to run.
And a business to run, yeah.
And a business to run, going through some pivots that are exciting and awesome because of a 10-year track record history and AI and some things kind of finally coalesce. So like all of that, all at once, go. Somewhere in there, we went from, you know, the day I got the call, which is like, my wife might die today and I have a newborn in my arms, to, is it possible that she's going to be okay? Is this the right path? To, okay, it looks like the probability of success is 99%, 95%, whatever number. They would never really put a hard number on it. Doesn't matter. But it was, we got to a place of, we're confident about 2 things. One, this is going to suck a lot. It's going to be hard. It's going to take her to the brink. It's going to take all of us to the brink. It's going to be very, 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 very difficult. But that very difficult, hard crap, that horrible amount of suffering is likely, very likely, high probability, like you can rest at ease. The chances of her being okay are so much greater than chances of her not. I got to a point that I was like, we're in the hard and she's going to be okay. And so what your brain starts to do is you check it off. You go like, wife die risk gone. This is going to be hard. And then I immediately stopped myself one day. I had some problem. I was a call, a text, something. It was somebody. I don't remember, but I extract this lesson, and for the sake of what did I get out of this experience? This is like the gem that I tried to pass on. I was in that moment, and I stopped myself because I was like, okay, so now if I can just do whatever. I don't remember the problem. I don't remember what it was, and it's probably irrelevant. If we could just solve this one thing, it was something trite, and I just, like a ton of bricks, stopped and was like, wait a second, Andrew. You just now became confident that you went from your wife might die to she's probably not going to die. And you're on to the next problem already? Like, can you just stop worrying about that problem for a second? Stop complaining about it in your mind. Stop being so ungrateful. Have a moment of gratitude for the fact that like this 100 out of 100 on the pain, bad things that could happen to you scale thing is more or less being taken away. Yes, you have a lot to go through. Yes, there's a lot of things to solve, but it was just an overwhelming experience of, hey, we just went from maybe die to very highly probably not. About as good of a probably won't die for anyone you care about in your life. Although we had to go through some hard medical stuff. And I started with pay some homage to her because I don't want to minimize that. But we did have that very direct, like, okay, check. She's probably not going to die now. You know, I got to a place where I thought my wife's probably not going to die today the same way most of us think someone we love is probably not going to die today, although they might be going through something. And then I was on to the next thing, and I was just like, how fast do we become accustomed to a major pain being taken away from us. So that's kind of what I shared with you. And I referenced the old stand-up bit about the guy that gets Wi-Fi on the plane for the first time, and within 5 minutes, he's complaining about how fast or slow it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's called hedonic adaptation. We've all heard that before. But for me personally, this was a very, very huge moment. You're just trying to be better about recognizing the progress. But because you were pre and then post a therapy conversation, what made us want to share this on the podcast was your reaction was equally powerful and useful to me, in that you said something to the effect of, it's also okay that whatever your problems are your problems. So I'll let you go from there. It's your show.
First of all, it was Louis C.K.
Yeah.
that did that bit on about the airplane Wi-Fi. Yeah, and I think that's the moment where I was like, you know what, this is an unusual topic, but we've got to capture this and try to share it with people. And it's one of these things. It's a very, very difficult thing to go against human nature, and that's what we're asking ourselves to do. Because I think this is probably, and I'm no scientist, which is going to be very evident in about 10 seconds, but I think this is related to the whole evolutionary part of being human. Is like we're looking out for what's around us right now. We're looking for the fears and the challenges and we're looking for the threats that are around us right now. And that threat might be that our internet is spotty, or that threat or the traffic in front of us is keeping us from getting to our appointment, or that threat might be my wife might die today, which is a very, very heavy thought. So first, let me just say that I told you this before, and I'm going to say it again because it's touching me the same way it did then. I'm very glad that everything's going well. I don't think you're through this, and you won't be for a long time, but I'm very glad everything's going well.
Well, thank you.
Having said that, a couple themes came out of this, which I think are really interesting. One theme is the sense of community. You said and we don't need to harp on this stuff, but these are just themes that I noticed. Your mother-in-law was very helpful. Or was your mother or mother-in-law?
Both. Yeah.
Yeah. And then
I like to say I'm very grateful for grandmas.
Yes. And then, but not only that, this is really interesting to me. I mean, I think we've all heard the value in nursing babies. You know, there's a lot of discussion about that. And you actually had, if I'm not mistaken, breast milk donors because your wife couldn't nurse your baby. What's your baby's name?
August.
So your wife couldn't nurse August, and therefore you had breast milk donors.
Yep. Yeah.
I never heard of such a thing.
The funny story is there are people who will sell breast milk too. You imagine a mom who has extra and needs money, so they'll sell it. It's allowed, private. And then there was moms who had extra and would just give it to us. So the funny version of this is like I became a little bit of a breast milk drug dealer. You know, like it's an odd experience to meet in a parking lot or knock on somebody's door and then have them say, "Let me show you to the freezer. Did you bring a big enough cooler?" And a Venmo transaction takes place, and you're like, you know, and my wife would vet them a little bit.
Pretty sure this is legal. Yeah. Pretty sure we're good here.
Yeah. So, you know, she'd ask questions. You know, to the mothers listening, this won't sound as crazy as it might to the fathers here, but, you know, it's not uncommon. A lot of moms will pump for a number of reasons. And one of the reasons is in case anything happens or in case the baby's sick in the future. There's a lot of reasons that they save it. So there was lots of people who had babies around the same time that saved it. But there's probably, I don't know, 20 or 30 people total. I mean, this is still actively a part of my, like, if I'm promoting something on this podcast, if anybody knows anybody in Salt Lake all the way to Vegas who is a healthy mom who breastfeeds and has had a baby in the last year, like, please reach out, because we are still trying to make sure this baby is fed good breast milk from healthy moms who care about breastfeeding.
By the way, we're going to talk about Cerebro Analytics as well, which is your company. So if somebody wants to reach you, whether it's about that or Cerebro Analytics, what's the best way to connect with you?
We can put cerebroanalytics.com in the show notes, and my LinkedIn would be great. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Andrew James, that's James. All right. So the community, and I mean, whether it's your grandmas or the grandmas, I should say, the community supporting your wife with the nursing.
We got a check in the mail randomly. There's an organization called the Purple Horse, who I don't know. I've tried to reach out to them to thank them. They are from the town we used to live in, which was Heber, which is near Park City. And now we live in St. George, Utah. A check just showed up in the mail one day. And they're an organization that literally former cancer survivors and people that have been touched by it. And they just find out if people have been diagnosed and like send money, because money is helpful.
That's amazing. I've never heard of that.
Yeah. So you go through like this terrible, difficult thing, and you're just floored every other hour by somebody being so generous. Great. You're just humbled and floored constantly. And also, if all that didn't happen, I mean, man, I would have been so screwed. Because you said, well, how did you do this? And I'm like, dude, we were so supported by so many people, and everything helped, be it thoughts and prayers to kind notes, inspiring quotes, to offers to help, to bring food, to money, to like people sent all kinds of things. So there's that. And then your team and everything you're standing on, everything you've built, every relationship, you have to just call in all the favors that you
your
possibly
co-founder,
can.
I'm sure your co-founder picked up a lot of the slack.
I mean, immensely, right? It's like, not only that, but somehow we made progress that was exciting. I mean, because we had rebuilt a lot to be the new version of our previous vision, which was now more possible with some of the AI stuff. So I can't not say that leveraging AI, as trite as it sounds, it's going to sound trite, but I at least have this card to play. Hey, my company grew while my wife was going through chemo, and I had 4 kids, one of who was a newborn, largely because of how we were able to leverage AI. If it weren't for all the tools, all the things we'd leveraged, all the ways we'd been working, could you imagine if nothing went forward, if I got on a plane or went to an office or didn't have the opportunities that we have? I mean, there's just so much to be grateful for. So I don't mean to make it about any one thesis or advice to anybody, but all of those things came together to support us. And it was insanely hard and insanely humbling at the same time because of the amount of, good people and care in the world that came and found us to help and support us.
But so we're talking about themes here. I want to touch on the AI thing. That's a big theme that we're going to expand into just a second. But I already touched on the value of therapy. I'm curious, Andrew, do you go to therapy?
I don't currently. I've been, and I have a lot of deep conversations with friends like you, and I feel like that helps. You're pitching me on.
I agree with that.
I should have someone dedicated. Is not the first time. The
problem with talking about with me is I want to talk about me.
Right.
The best part about talking to a therapist is like they're so into you. And,
yes.
And granted, you pay money for this, and it's that makes it feel kind of dirty actually. But like you go in there, and I can tell you, like the person I talked to I asked her why she does what she does. Like, what is it that actually, I kind of turned into a podcast interview with her at one point, the very first one. Like, why is it she does this? And she says, I am genuinely interested in other people. Like, that's something that, and so
Mm.
you have this whole genre of people that are just really interested in talking to others and listening and hearing from them. And that's what a good therapist falls in that category. Anyway, yeah, I'm not
Compared to us entrepreneurs who are
just want
very
to tell you about my
interested,
stuff.
so that I can tell you.
Yeah. 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 Well, that's great. Let me tell you about what I'm doing with AI.
Enough about me. Let's talk about me for a minute longer.
Let's talk about AI and me. So the therapy, the community, and then the one thing we didn't touch on, but I do want to touch on is advocacy in healthcare, because I've heard over and over and over again in just the past year, how, and I don't have a lot of experience in healthcare, and certainly not in countries outside of the US. But I know that in the US, like, you really need to advocate for yourself or for somebody else that you love that's in the hospital. Like, you really got to ask questions and push to get the right attention. Did you
Hmm.
experience that in this journey?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, that was one of the more stressful components of this. Like, look at the other ways this could have gone. She would, I often said, and this might sound noble, but it was just operationally would have been more efficient for me to have been the one that had cancer, because I could have sat in the hospital with a laptop and been going through what she was going through, and the kids would have been at home with their mom, and yeah, it'd suck, and sometimes we'll go visit daddy and it'd be fine, and I could have somebody come sit there and work next to me and advocate, like, just that would
I
have
think
been
you're
easier.
forgetting about the whole collapsed lung thing.
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
I'm sure she wasn't feeling ship shape, and
No, she wasn't, but I was like, if I could take this from you, I would trade places.
yeah,
And she was like,
that I
yes, that would be
understand.
more convenient. She's like, you would probably thrive in here. You just sit on your laptop all day. Because there was a lot of that she was just bored. So when you flip it, she, you know, somebody in some way had to cover and be with the kids or the business most of the time that we weren't with her in the hospital. So we, as much as I could be, we had grandma and grandpa with the kids so I could go to a long oncology appointment. Or we did things like we had a site that was built about how Brooke was doing. And that all came from just recording conversations with the doctors. But there was 100 instances where she had to be her advocate and say, I'll tell you the funniest story. So this will
It's
just
it,
illustrate, this
it's
will
funny
illustrate
alone,
why.
just saying all these funny stories amidst this story, right? Like, this journey this is traumatic, and yet
Yeah. And the
there's a
only way
lot
you
of
get,
entertaining stories in it.
yeah, people are like, well, how do you get through it? And you're like, I don't know. We're just doing it. But one of the things is you have to find comedy. You
Yeah,
have to find
yeah.
funny things.
Yes, couldn't agree
So,
more.
so
Yep.
she comes home from the hospital one of the times or calls me and she's like, guess what happened? And this will illustrate the advocacy need, because I'm not blaming the caretakers are great. She loved so many people through the process. Yes, she had complaints. Yes, there was differences between person to person. And yes, she had to make sure people were on the same page. But I'll just give you one example to illustrate. So you lose your hair with chemo, of course. And there's nurses and then there's techs. So the techs will come in and, take your vitals, manage all sorts of things. They'll help switch over bags and the IV thing, all that kind of stuff. But they'll also do basics. So after her hair was gone, head shaved, as bald as you see me now, she one day one of the techs came in and was like, "Do you need shampoo and conditioner?" And that happened more than once, and she'd gotten a little bit frustrated with it, and she just kind of pointed to her head and was like, "Nope, I don't need conditioner." And then a couple minutes go by, and she comes back in, and she's like, "Oh, I brought you a comb," and she's like, "Once again, I look at my head," you know. So, and listen, that girl's probably 19 years old. She's doing this as she's going through like nursing school as the way to get in here. She's working through the middle of the night, all those things. But
She probably
there's,
felt terrible walking out of that
of
room.
course.
Yeah.
And she tried
She's
to
just
be,
she's in this pattern, right?
yeah. So to scalably serve so many sick people, I have tremendous respect for the problem they are tackling. And the medical community, in my experience, co-piloting this, has embraced, at least for our experience, have embraced the fact that humanity has access to the internet and to AI, and they are to a degree saying, you know what? If you guys are going to have opinions about everything, we're going to give you the facts, and you are going to have to decide on some stuff with us, which has good and bad. Because my experience was not one of everyone 100% telling us exactly what to do in every moment and us having to make some decisions while not being, medical professionals. So I don't know. I have a mixed, I have a N of one husband of a cancer survivor experience here. You can't just go on autopilot, you know. It is not full self-driving.
I know I need to be really careful of that because I tend to focus on the things that I want to focus on, and then I trust the experts to do their jobs. And that in my company, in other companies, when gosh, talk about trite, but my boat, like I do the things I want to do on my boat, and the rest of it I turn to the experts. That's a problem with the healthcare system. You cannot do that. I'm curious, did you utilize any LLMs was AI your friend when you were
Oh
in the
yeah.
hospital? Tell me about and then this is actually a great transition to talking about what you do for a living at
Yeah.
Cerebro Analytics.
So for sure, we had a couple projects. This one I ran mostly in ChatGPT, ironically, but we had a ChatGPT project for her cancer stuff. So tons of chats,
Like a
every new
custom
piece of
GPT.
data. No, just a project, just a folder with
Okay.
so
All
we
right.
just, load up test results and talk about it, or do some research on, they're saying it might be this kind or that kind. I loaded lots of transcripts of calls. I would record the call, load that in, and use that to kind of navigate and
Oh,
understand.
that's brilliant.
I would
Yeah.
use it to
Yep.
will you please summarize this and explain it so we can tell the family and like make it pout, like those kinds of things.
I mean, awesome. I
Turned it into a
already
website about
those are
how she's
brilliant
doing.
ideas.
Yeah. The best story is her PET scan when she was clear. So all of us probably, depending on your like health network or hospital network you go to, most of them are run by a smaller handful of software companies. So you probably have an app for whoever your hospital system is.
Yeah.
So they've gone the mode of transparency where you get a test and the results often come out and you have access to the data before the appointment with the doctor or whoever the professional is to read it and help you with it, right? So the day she got the PET scan, she came late in that evening before dinner into the kitchen holding the phone and said, I'm not going to read it. You read it, because it's like the results came out. So I said, I'm going to go into my office and
And
read
this is
it.
the thing to tell you whether or not the
It's
tumor
gone.
has
Yeah.
shrank.
Think of it as
gone.
a cancer heat map for my digital marketing friends.
Yep.
It's like a heat
Yep.
map of where's the cancer.
Okay.
Cancer x-ray, if you will, although it's not an x-ray, it's a PET scan. And so I go into the office and she couldn't wait. She copy pasted it into ChatGPT. And I hear a few minutes later, ChatGPT says it's gone. And then for the next hour, I got one of the most bittersweet experiences of my life, which is to watch a 6-year-old girl cry for an hour straight and ask me why she was crying and happy at the same time. So I was like, man, this is going to be the best or worst commercial for AI ever.
Oh my God. That's
Right?
a Super Bowl ad right there, Andrew. Oh my God.
And
Oh my
and
God, dude. Like
it's
really?
crazy, right?
Yeah.
Because it just and I read the ChatGPT thing. I also like read the report, and then we're like, okay, let's go talk to the oncologist. But to the point of advocacy, we went into the appointment with the oncologist the next day with all of that, and we were able to talk at a
You went
level
skipping into
closer.
the appointment. Yeah.
Yeah, well, we're like, hey, this is what we understand. This is how, because here's the nuance. The oncologist walks into the room a little bit late, and we're like, what's going on? The first words out of her mouth are, so I'm having a big debate. And I'm like, okay. And long story short, she didn't fully agree with the way that the radiology tech read parts of the report and her looking at the map. And the oncologist and ChatGPT, ironically, were closer to each other than how the oncologist read the notes from the radiologist, if that makes any sense. So, but the point to your question is you are more able to track and be informed. That's like a very basic level of using AI to upload some stuff, have it tell you some things, check with the doctor. We would do things like share our questions about it and then have it help us draft a list of questions for whatever provider. That was a thing in advocacy we had to do a lot, which is like help her have a list of questions to ask whoever she was going to meet with next. And that's something I would help her do. Just have an Apple note that she could go like, here's the questions. And they would go through them all. So because you get brain fog and she'd want to not forget it. And then she would record that meeting with the oncologist. And then I would take it, put it back in the thing, and we would use that together to go through all of it.
So this is a great segue because what you were doing with um, on your own, just using ChatGPT, is very similar to what you're doing at Cerebro Analytics. Um, which, gosh, that was a rough segue, but I mean, essentially,
Hard
what
right
you're doing
turn.
is, no, let's consider a soft right turn, but we are turning. This is the phase where I'm going to get away from my problems are bigger than your conversation. And I mean, that was an amazing story. And I just want to say this again. I'm so grateful for technology. I'm so grateful that we live in the era that we live in.
Mm-hmm.
I'm uh, I know there's a little less debate now, but over the past 2 years, there's been a lot of debate over whether or not this AI is good for us or not. I'm a firm believer that it is. I'm excited about I'm like a kid in a candy shop every time the topic of AI comes up. I cannot
Yeah.
get enough of it. My poor family is so sick of it. Although I've got them all buying into it now. And
Yeah.
and so well to a certain degree, even my wife is she always tells me every time she goes into ChatGPT and is asking these questions of ChatGPT to help her understand different issues in our lives and so on. But this for you, and I know this is a big part of my business, having a software company as well, but you come from the world of digital marketing for the past, 20
Mm-hmm.
years or so,
Mm-hmm.
and the analytics and so on. But now, why don't you tell me how that's evolved into Cerebro Analytics?
Yeah, the fastest way to say it is the first time I bought ads on Google, it was in the 5, 10 cents a click day. I went through most of the evolution.
I
Yeah,
remember
like,
talking to you about this in 2015-ish.
yeah, and that was pretty far into the conversation. So it pretty quickly becomes a game of if you can know what's going on, spend more on what works and less on what doesn't. So we early were building tech and tying together tech to make that attribution of how much did I spend over here, how much did it make me over here, and why that I can do something about to do more of what's working, less of what's not. We'd been doing that for a long time. That leads you to do, nerd word, a lot of data pipelines and data engineering. So last year, probably May, June, we had taken several runs at various machine learning, trading algorithm, things like that on top of the ads. And we just hadn't ever fully had an AI implementation work out. But we basically ripped everything down to the bones of just the data and rebuilt the analytics, the visualization on top of it. So we built, the nerdy word is a semantic layer. It's basically a layer that allows an AI to understand what's in all the various data sources so you can chat with the data. And then, because of all the coding tools, we built and have been optimizing a dashboarding feature. So you can talk when connected to your real data. We support more than 1,000 data sources. So everything from QuickBooks and Zoho and HubSpot and Google Ads and Fathom and Go High Level and everything onto that, to the most obscure one we just wrote for the Chamber of Commerce here in my town that just bought from us a software called Chamber Master that chambers of commerce use. We've got tons of integrations. So we take that pipeline and teach the AI how to understand what's in your QuickBooks versus what's in your HubSpot versus what's in your ads manager. Teach it your goals. What is the organization trying to achieve? And all of that combined, you can then talk to it and say, I want to know these numbers, put them on a dashboard. And then once that dashboard's done, you can, instead of, hey, Johnny, go get the numbers and tell me how we're doing, or you refreshing all the time, you can ask it about the dashboard and work through the problem and start to move things forward. And so that's a little bit of the longer elevator pitch.
So you're taking data from all these scattered places, scattered data that's all over the place. And I'm looking at your website. You got ads, CRMs, analytics, revenue, metrics, platforms, and that basically goes into this AI layer that you've built. That's the Cerebro component. And then through there, you can access the data simply by asking the right questions, or maybe Cerebro is making some suggestions based on the data.
Yeah, it does both. If people go through, I've been really, really, really impressed actually. If people go sign up, they can sign up, create an account for free. We have some free forever stuff that's going on. If they go through that onboarding, they can talk to the AI for a little bit and it'll ask them about the goals they have. And then if they sync any data, it'll take that goal conversation it does and then those data sources and make recommendations. You'll click run and it'll start to build you a dashboard. And then usually at that point is when somebody wants to talk to us and have us kind of help them go from like, okay, I see what it could do. How do we make this a heartbeat of the organization? How do we really operationalize this so it goes as far as it can go? But I have an acronym that I think you'll like that is helpful just as a thinking construct, whether people work with me or not. I think this would be useful to share as a way people can think about this, and it's easy to remember. The acronym is ACDC, and it stands for Attract, Convert, Deliver, Cash. So I find that basically all businesses have these 4 phases of how business works. So you do stuff to attract people to sell stuff to. You do the process to sell them. You convert them. You do the process of delivering. And then you look at the money and relate those all together. I would invite people, again, whether they go to cerebroanalytics.com or not, to just ask yourself the question or ask AI the question, where is our business slowing down the most? Which of those buckets? Is it in the leads? Is it in the conversion process? Is it in the delivery process? Is it in the cash? And just that framework alone is often useful. What I've been pleasantly surprised by is how often it's actually somebody says it's a leads problem, but that's really more symptomatic of a conversion or delivery problem. And those C and D is where you're starting to see a lot more breakthroughs in general, because AI also can help you to convert and deliver better. And so I actually created something that the audience, whoever's listening to this might like, called the 100 ACDC questions. So if you go create an account, there's a saved prompt you can run after you fill out your stuff, and it will just, instead of you asking AI questions, it will ask you all those questions and by all those buckets. So we created 25 questions per bucket about Attract, and I've seen very interesting insights come out of that for people.
So that was the model that you use so that people aren't just going into Cerebro blind, like they need to go ask a question. I think that's one of the problems with, with a lot of the LLMs and the basic consumer level interaction is like, you got to start the dialogue. Whereas I think it's with a platform like this, part of the value is the platform starting the dialogue, the platform saying, okay, Hey, Andrew, welcome to Cerebro. Welcome to your platform. Our job is to help you deliver higher performing ads, for example. Um, Here are some suggestions based on what we can see. Here are some suggestions. And
Hmm.
then that sparks the conversation as opposed to you going in and just starting to ask questions. Is that what you're getting at? Is that the value of
Yeah,
the
that's
ACDC
exactly
model?
right. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's exactly right. I think that's well said. Yeah.
So one of the things I've noticed with AI and SaaS, software as a service with AI, it seems like every software company now is
Hmm.
essentially saying, "Hey, we can help you capture scattered data and turn it into insight." Like it is. We're saying that. You're saying that. I think the key is uh, what the niche is, right? It's not everybody's just going to capture all kinds of insight and I mean, not capture all kinds of data from different places and turn it into insight that's going to be generally valuable. The value is in the niche. Is
Hmm.
that fair to say?
Yeah, it's fair to say.
What is your niche? Where do you focus your energy? And what kind of what's your ICP? What's your ideal client profile for Cerebro? Like who is because I can tell you for us, for my company's Propule, our niche, we work with associations, very, very specifically nonprofit member-based organizations is like who we're working with. And we serve membership teams and we help them understand what's happening inside the heads of their members in order to serve them better. Like that's we want to help organizations make membership meaningful for their members. So that's what we're really, really focused on. The model of capturing data from all these different places and turning it into insight is just a very broad model. What are you using it for? Or what are your best clients using it for?
We're very tuned to project-based sales processes and delivery. And usually, because of digital marketing, people want to take ads data and all the things that go along with digital marketing and make that more efficient. We have a lot of experience and a very big legacy data set there. I mean, we've been tracking 50 to $100 million of revenue across multiple different companies per year for a decade. And so we have a lot of additional insight as to how one metric correlates to another from click to close in some sort of a sales process. I'm constantly surprised by what people actually want to do when I say you can plug in your QuickBooks, your CRM, your ads, and your project management software. So I can talk various broad use cases all day long, but right now there's kind of two primary avatars or ICPs we've been serving a lot. They're in construction, home services, a lot of specialty contractors. So think somebody doing awnings or pool cleaning or garage floor epoxy coaters, some of the plumbing and HVAC folks, that kind of thing. And then the other one tends to be something financial services oriented. We have a company, great company, East Coast Everyday Money Management. If somebody has aging parents in one of their service areas, they will help either a wealthy individual or just an older person tactically manage the money. They're not wealth managers. They're going to go make sure the rent is paid on time, make sure that the guy coming over to the house to sell you new windows isn't screwing you over, make sure that, they don't get subject to fraud and scams and things like that. So there's a lot of other people in those niches, lots of fractional CFOs, fractional chief revenue officers. A lot of those folks are using us to fulfill the hundreds and thousands of disposable dashboard requests that we need to know this number, but nobody has time to go build it or go get it. So our core process, we try to get people down to 3 dashboards and 3 saved prompts for 3 roles. That the analogy I like to use is if what we really specialize in is data-driven decision systems, right? So if your business can do better if a person or a machine is looking at a stream of data with a lot of decisions to make, that's really where we thrive. because those decisions can turn into automated actions, and we can pull the data together, help them build scoring models, help them build the things that are going to allow them to operationalize what many entrepreneurs are operating off of is like gut feel from an update, or they look at 3 different platforms. It's not just about scattered data in one place. It's really about how do we go from data to decision to action. But the short answer, yeah, a lot of home services, a lot of financial firms.
I have one more question, and this is, I don't know. I don't know if the listeners are going to care about this, but I do. I know when you connect systems or you capture data from one system, bring it into or through another system, traditionally you need an API. API maps fields in one database to fields in another database. Essentially, that's my understanding. This is as technical as I get. Being able to map together fields so that you're speaking the same language. With AI, there's something called an MCP, which is I don't even know what that stands for. Do you know what the acronym is? We can probably find it pretty quickly, but an MCP though is essentially like an API.
It's Model Context Protocol.
Thank you. Model Context Protocol. So my understanding though is that it's essentially like an API for AI tools. Is that how you're able to have thousands of
no,
tools that you
actually,
can tap
and
into?
this is actually important. So early versions of what we did as an experiment, we did more or less what we first did was we took our data pipeline and we made an MCP and connected it to Claude. So Rev 0 was, hey, we have your data, or go add your data to the platform. And then we gave people a link that they could put into their Claude, and they could talk inside of Claude with the data. I can nerd out maybe further than you or the audience wants to go on this one, but there's some challenges. MCP came out of Claude. It came out of a hackathon. It started to look like something that was going to be adapted. Every time you're seeing, for the most part, integrate this, that, or the other inside a foundational LLM, most of those are relying on MCP. It's not good or bad. It just needs to be understood what the limitations and capabilities are generally, depending on the type of problem you're trying to solve. So that's where we started. It has some serious limitations and challenges with regards to analytics and bigger data sets. If you go plug in an MCP, and everybody's data and use case and mileage is going to vary, but that is the biggest feedback we got, and in our testing that we saw. It was the first rev of it was magical. Hey, I connected it to HubSpot and I asked this question and it magically built me this dashboard that looks pretty. Cool. All right, now come back tomorrow and check the numbers again. It magically imagined the dashboard with slightly different, not numbers, because the numbers should probably change on a dashboard, right? There's 8 leads yesterday and 22 tomorrow, and that's fine, but it would change the definitions, and some of those things of getting the AI onto Rails became challenging. So most of the solutions that you'll see out there are relying on this, but the most common complaint is that it's too unstable. So MCP, in my view, as of right now, has more of a place in helping people do smaller tasks in and out of systems easier than an API. But with regards to analytics, if you need to have a number correct or you need to have all the data, we solve this problem in 2 ways. Way number one is we basically become your data warehouse, business intelligence, data engineering team, and you can run on our infrastructure and have all of the pipes of a company. Probably if you're between $3 and $10 million, the investment to go stand this up for yourself would probably be way out of your budget, to be candid. It's kind of the kind of thing that we see companies at $25, $50, $100 million in revenue standing up, maintaining, and hiring people. And some of those companies will spend more than our smallest customers' top line revenue on their data team alone. So in a shared environment, people can have that infrastructure and basically have the same things that you would get if you went and hired a BI team, data engineers, et cetera, plus a chat layer and a visualization layer. And that's really important for a reason I'll get to. The other way we do it is when people have that infrastructure, we've figured out a few things that can live on top of it. So anyone that already has a database, has a data warehouse, we have a bring your own database feature that people can go plug in everything we've built on top of our infrastructure to theirs. That's one of the ways that we handle some of the security, privacy, et cetera, because we don't have to actually replicate and pass all the data into the models. We can just train the model on what's in the database, and it can go and privately look at that underlying structure. So there's some options there. The reason it's so important to replicate the data is you need, when you start to get to mission critical stuff, or even just you want the dashboard to tell you the same number every day and watch the number move, not the dashboard move around the number that's also moving. You need to replicate it. And what we do is we have the AI understand all of it so that it can write the data visualizations. And it's using AI to write the code to join the data and tell you what's going on in it, but then it becomes stable. The next level benefit is what you've now created is a context level, and we'll go all the way down the rabbit hole here. When you look at that dashboard and you say leads last 7 days was 752, when I then ask a follow-up question about that number, we're passing the totality of all that code that's looking at all that data into it, but it's compressed so the AI can just only go look at what you're looking at on the dashboard. It can be an actual co-pilot for you, looking at the numbers alongside you, like you would expect a good analyst to do, except that it doesn't get mad. It doesn't charge you $250 an hour. It doesn't call you stupid. It'll explain definitions of things. It'll talk back and forth with you. It'll let you go on tangents. It'll let you interrupt yourself. It'll let you do all those things. It won't get pissed at you when you ask 2 more questions before you read the answer to the first. It'll let you do all that and patiently help you get to the next conclusion. And if it's not visualized, it'll politely suggest, well, we could maybe look at this number to answer the question you're asking about and create a chart or table or visualization for that. So I think the blessing and the curse of AI and running a software company, or frankly any company right now, is what you're getting at. It's like the niche problem's a real problem because on the one hand, the moats probably come from doing things so well and so uniquely that you have something that nobody else has, which by definition you can only create by focusing in such a way that nobody else is focused on it. So this is unique. And on the other hand, we all have this superpower in our pockets where we could kind of do or tackle almost anything. And that juxtaposition is very challenging.
So what I found really interesting, my takeaway from the way you explained how the data transfers, you're taking a combination of the precision associated with APIs and traditional databases, marrying it to the flexibility of machine learning or LLMs. And by bringing those things together, you have precision and flexibility, as opposed to just creating a raw AI tool, which is a little less precise, but crazy flexible. The downside, of course, is that's a bigger project. You mentioned BI, but business intelligence teams that generally are responsible for this. Sure, AI makes that a lot easier, as you have, but they're big projects, what you're discussing, and therefore generally not cheap, A. And B, you mentioned a moat. Moat is a word that's being used a lot these days in software to describe what is the differentiator that makes you stand out above and beyond the value of just the software. And for you, it's the expertise around taking this data, keeping the precision and adding in the AI flexibility.
Yeah.
Andrew, thank you. People can reach you on LinkedIn or Cerebro Analytics. That's Cerebro Analytics.com. This was a fun conversation. Of course, I should have expected it to go longer than I always expect these things to be faster. But then we get into the talk about happiness and problems, and I'm like, okay, now let's talk about AI. and now I want to go deeper into the industry, but we're going to stop here. Thank you so much for the time, Andrew. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you.